news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute.
It's time for the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Big hearing today, and big fun there. Cannot wait to jump into the middle of all of that. But first, had a really great day in Philadelphia today as the AFL-CIO held their convention, electing Liz Shuler as their president, the first woman president of that organization, and Fred Redmond, the first African-American secretary-treasurer. Historic day. That happened yesterday, but historic convention. It was an incredible place of a lot of what the messaging about labor has been over the years is, stuck in the past, Luddites. The amount of technology that they were rolling out. The bricklayers have this machine that lifts the bricks. I may have become a bricklayer. Still keeps workers, working, but saves people's backs, hyper efficient. Lots of great stuff, lots of cool tools, lots of cool little gadgets. The sheet metal workers, they've got this dog this mechanical dog that lays out grid work. I mean, the pilots had their simulator. There was just all kinds of kind of geeky, techie stuff, which is really cool. Along with, hey, better wages, hours, conditions, fighting for social justice, fighting for opportunities. It was a great convention. I'll be back tomorrow for President Biden's speech. He'll be showing up in Philadelphia for that. We generally do our show from those conventions. We've been doing it for years. This year with COVID, the protocols didn't happen. So we come back to the studio. We'll do the show from here, interviews and stuff down the road. We just didn't do it. Couldn't do it. So we will get to that stuff. But it was great to be back in public space with activists and labor leaders and workers, all saying, look, we're at a historic moment. Take advantage of this moment, continue to organize, continue to move forward. Had a nice conversation with Marty Walsh, Labor Secretary. I'm going to put that out on podcast later in the week. But yeah, really, really great stuff. And excited about the direction of labor in this country. And hopefully, Liz Shuler will lead into the future and do great things. But ultimately, it comes down to us. It comes down to you and me. It comes down to working people saying, you know what? We want better wages, hours, conditions for everyone. Equality across the board. Doesn't matter who you are, what position you find yourself where. Doesn't matter. You do a job, you get paid for it. And that's a conversation I had today with someone of the transgender community. Doesn't matter. Everyone is equal. Do your job. Everyone's equal. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. It's always been my view. There's opportunity here. And as soon as we can heal those divides, as soon as we can put down our divisions, as soon as we can get past all of the anger and the hatred and all the things that have been tearing us apart, maybe sooner we can just get moving forward. And I think one of those main arguments, one of those things that really tear us apart, I think today the hearings, MAGA world, were you watching? And were you angry? honestly, if you bought the hat, if you got the MAGA hat, you bought the Trump flag, if you got the T-shirt, if you're getting 100 emails a day, hey, help us stop the steal. If you took the bus trip to D.C., you took money out of your own pocket to fly across the country to get to D.C. because they told you, man, they're stealing it from you. They're stealing. Are you angry by what you're hearing? Are you ready to start burning the MAGA hats and flags? Are you ready to start going, they lied to us? I mean, Representative Zoe Lofgren was, look, Trump used these false election claims, the false fraud claims, to raise hundreds of millions, not thousands, hundreds of millions of dollars off of people he told, I need your money to fight these legal battles. And he never used it for any of it. As she said, the big lie was also a big ripoff. $250 million. $200, $250 million. Now here would be an opportunity for a cheap jab, almost going to make him a billionaire. They paid Kimberly Guilfoyle $60,000 for a 2.5-minute screech. And the first question that came to my mind is, how much did she have to kick back to Trump? Did she get to keep 10 and have to kick 50 back? How did this scheme work? How did this big ripoff work? How much of it ended up in his pocket? I mean, wow. And look, here's the thing. I've been saying from the beginning that this is what this has always been. There was no way that they were going to overturn the election. There's no way that all of the fraud and all of the things that they were claiming were actually happening. And why? Understand why I was saying this. Not because I'm hyper partisan. You could argue, yeah, I am. But because none of them took this into the court of law. Rudy, nothing. Sidney Powell, nothing. Lynn Wood, nothing. None of the Trump legal brain trust went into that room where the people with the robe on, with the gavel, where they bring the book out that everyone on the right claims to love but never reads, where they make you put your hand on it and swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth to help you God. None of them took those fantasies into that room. None of them. They saved that for the Four Seasons lawn care facility. They saved that for the hotel in Gettysburg. They saved that for the F channel. They saved that for every email they sent, the hundreds a day that I get from every right-wing group, and save the this and stop the that, and oh my God, they're taking that. And it was all just a big ripoff. It was the big fleece. Are you angry? You got conned. And I said this from the beginning. Donald Trump is a con man. He was always a con man. Is anyone surprised by this? No one should be. No one should be. This is the kind of stuff he's been getting away with for years. Now, this is one of those moments. This is an opportunity to go, you know what? Nobody likes to get taken. Nobody likes to get ripped off. Nobody likes to get the short end of the stick. But there's a moment where you go, yeah, fess up. I got taken in. And there's nothing wrong with that, because I was thinking about it today on the ride back from Philly. I had about 2.5 hours in the car as I'm listening to the hearing, and I'm going through this in my mind. Okay, well, what if the shoe's on the other foot, and you really believe that all of this stuff is going on? Because look, I truly believe that Republicans have been doing gimmicks for years. You go back to the purging of the voter rolls. They do that. They've gotten away with it for years. We've known that. The hanging chads. You go back to 2000. You go back to 2004 with the caging. The whole voter ID thing. Everything to put an obstacle in the way. And we fought back against those. And we fought hard. Had someone come to me and said, "Oh, whoa, whoa," there was the black box voting folks, who for a couple of minutes had my ear, going, "Okay, give me the information." Had the president at the time come out and said, "Hey, trust me, I'm your president. I'm putting the full faith and credibility of this office behind telling you that they're stealing this election from us, that there's a nefarious plot to overthrow our government. Stand up, be patriots, and send me money." Would I send them money? No. But I would take to the streets. So I kind of understand a little bit. So there's openness. There's an opportunity to go, "Hey, kind of get it. Kind of." But there's got to be a moment of awakening. And I got MAGA world, you've got to be angry about what you heard today. Because Democrats spent a good portion of the 2 hours saying, look, they made hundreds of millions of dollars off these voter fraud lies that didn't go to the campaign's legal effort. Because they knew there was no effort. They knew there was no there. And what I'm really struggling with in this moment is that you've got all of these people who now went into these depositions and went into these hearings to testify because they had to put their hand on the Bible and swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help them God, or they go to jail under the threat of perjury because now they're under oath. They're not standing in front of some garage with the Four Seasons and lawn care service on it. This is real deal. This is you tell the truth or you go. And now they're people go, "Oh, look at how they pushed back." No, they were cowards at the moment. I'm sticking with cowards. They don't get the credit of being heroes after the fact. Oh, or they were telling him at the time. Did they tell you? Did they tell me? No. They stayed quiet. And they allowed the big lie and the big fleece, big ripoff to continue. You should be furious. This should be something that just... And look, here's the other thing. If you listen to the testimony of this Chris Stirewalt, who was the political editor at the F Channel, fired 2 months after the election, by the way, because they called the election, they called Arizona. And he went through, he said, look, we did our due diligence. The numbers are the numbers. The math was the math. There's no way to overturn and to do what he claimed was happening. There's just no way. It's just not possible. Maybe a recount gets you a couple hundred votes. It's not getting you thousands. And all of the claims that they threw out were all bogus. And you look at some of the words that Billy Barr was using. And this is the part that really, is kind of angering. And look, I know Billy Barr wants, it was trying to protect himself. But I got to tell you, I think Billy Barr is probably one of the most dishonest human beings and disingenuous human beings in our politics. But he went on to describe the voter fraud lies with terms like idiotic, BS, bogus and silly, disturbing, complete nonsense, zero basis for the allegations, all kinds of stuff like that. We go, Billy, where were you? Oh, that's right. In your resignation letter, where was any of that language? It was nowhere. So you don't get to now be the good guy. You stayed silent, people died. You stayed silent, policemen died. You stayed silent. Your voters, your party's voters are going to jail. Their lives are going to be changed forever. So all of those people who thought they were uber patriots, fighting the good fight, watering the tree of liberty, they all got duped, man. And I hope they were watching. I hope they're seeing what's going on. Because maybe this is a moment where you go, okay, maybe there's a moment here. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Do you feel anger, MAGA world? Or is this a moment where you go, well, no, Trump was, DeSantis is now the good guy, or Benito Mastriano, or whoever's next in the line of fascist kind of authoritarian leader who hates the same kind of people or wants the same kind of divisive future? Is that the future? Or are you ready to burn the MAGA past? I'd love to hear it. 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Going to take a quick break. When I come back, a little bit more on this because there was so much from this hearing. Got to get your thoughts. Quick break, right back. Stick around. If you're a fan of the show, you've heard our labor history in 2 segments, and you can hear them on the radio pretty much anywhere in the U.S. Labor history has never been more important than it is right now. So here's what we'd like you to do. Tell a teacher. Tell a teacher that labor history is important and that they can get digestible 2-minute lessons that are absolutely free. Free to download, free to use, free to share. Tell a teacher to go to thericksmithshow.com/history and help us put labor back where it belongs, in the classroom. You know, generations of American workers fought, bled, and died to build the American way of life. It's our job to keep their stories alive. Go tell a teacher that we're here to help them do just that. Find us at thericksmithshow.com/history today.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Check out our website, thericksmithshow.com. Questions, comments, something on your mind, you can email me, Rick at thericksmithshow.com. Let's go to Ben on line 1. Ben, what's on your mind?
Hey, Rick, I was just calling to agree with you. I'm sorry, there's a little echo in the phone here, but everything that you're saying is absolutely correct. I mean, it seems like so many people are giving these people a pass. We wouldn't be where we are right now had they done the right thing in the beginning.
Yep.
So I agree with you. We should be absolutely furious and not giving these people a pass. They all need to be taken to task.
No, and the people who are the ones who are going to be suffering the consequences for this, the people who were there at the insurrection, the people who are going to be going to jail, they should be the ones who are the most angry here, and the ones who are working to cooperate to make sure this kind of stuff never gets to happen again.
Absolutely, but unfortunately, and I've heard a couple of people say this earlier today, unfortunately, there's some of these people that you're never going to be able to get through to. No matter what they see, no matter what they hear, they're going to continue to believe the big lie. They're going to continue to support Trump. They're going to continue to do those things. I've lost a lot of friends over this stuff. And again, all of this stuff, at least most of it, could have been alleviated had these people just done the right thing. But because they're standing up in this moment, because they may be prosecuted, we should be absolutely incensed. I just hope that it gives us the motivation to get out there in droves to vote these people out.
No, I'm with you, and this is the election that has to happen. And I'm hoping people are paying attention. I don't like the fact that this was in the morning today. I would have liked this to have been prime time, but I'm hoping people are paying attention, Ben.
Well, I got to say this one last thing. A lot of us, I don't know what it is about the education system in America, but a lot of us don't understand that this is the important election. It's not necessarily the presidential election. That's an important one as well. But this is the one that sets the foundation for a lot of this stuff to happen. We need to get out there and vote this November or early election, if you can do that. But we need to understand that this is the election that is in many ways the most important.
Amen.
But so many of us think it's not important and whatever. Anyways, yes, I agree with you totally.
Appreciate it, Ben. Thanks so much. Thanks for the call, buddy. Absolutely. I agree with Ben 100%. Let's quick get Alice on the line. Alice, how are we doing today?
We're doing. I sent you that article.
Yep.
About Liz Cheney. And what I wanted to say was, yes, the people are going to jail, but unfortunately, you have people like Liz Cheney who are protecting Ginny Thomas and some of these other ones. And I don't care who they are. They need to pay for what they did too.
100% there. That's why I keep bringing her name up. Ginny Thomas is one of those people who she has been under the radar for a very long time. And now she's really stepped in it because she had direct access to Trump, and the fact that the Supreme Court is part of this. I think her name has to be brought up often.
I totally agree with you, and I just think that yes, I can see putting the focus on Trump and his cohorts, but she's one of them too. And I think that it's kind of despicable that, you have Liz Cheney going, well, her husband's a Supreme Court justice, and he's not there to defend himself. Excuse me? It's crazy.
No, not there. Not there. No, not there. But appreciate the call, Alice. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
No, but look, Ginny Thomas, she was head right out there in the front of the Tea Party movement. If you remember all that, she was right out there pushing that stuff. In fact, there were stories at the time of how they benefited from that, and these lines run deep. The great ripoff runs deep, and this is why I keep coming back to. Yeah, this is about Trump, but this is about the moneyed interests. I still come back to this. This is about the billionaires, the hyper wealthy who fund this stuff. Because this kind of division, I hate the right-left frame because this is what tears us apart. The reality is that the fight is not right-left. The fight is up-down. It is these billionaires who have all this money because, hey, we've created a tax code that just gives them all of this power. And then they use these concepts like freedom. They're taking your freedom to buy a gun. They're taking your freedom to do this or that. But you never hear anybody talk about the freedom from worrying about, are you going to die from not having health care? They never talk about the freedom of, at some point you're going to be able to retire in old age. They never talk about the freedom of earning a reasonable income for you so you can feed your children. They never talk about those actual freedom. No, it's always some abstract. And I think Democrats have got to reclaim liberty and freedom and those words back. And patriotism, love of this country, and love of fighting for it. I have a lot of friends who were, they thought Trump was fighting the good fight. And I'm hoping that they're seeing that, sadly, man, they got fleeced. I get the same emails because I get them so you don't have to. And every day my box is full of, hey, that left, they're coming, send us money. And to find out that there was never a defense. There was never going to be, because they knew there was no way to do what they were going to do. And they knew it. Every one of them people said they knew it. Even Ivanka. Man, I got to tell you, if I'm one of the red hat wearing MAGA folks, flying the flag, wearing the T-shirt, marking up myself, tattoo, I'm losing my ever-loving flipping mind over this. And you should be. You should be, and I want to hear from you. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you miss any program or today's or any program, make sure you grab the podcast. You can get that at the website or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Quick break, right back with Joe Walsh. Stick around. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2 on On this day in labor history, the year was 1926. That was the day union leader Tony Mazzocchi was born. He's remembered as a longtime leader and international official with the Oil, Chemical, and Atomic Workers Union. Mazzocchi was a prime force behind the passage of the Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1970. He was also centrally involved in the grievances Karen Silkwood brought against the Kerr-McGee Company. During the 1990s, he worked tirelessly to establish a Labor Party as an independent political force that could truly represent working people. Mazzocchi was born in Brooklyn, New York, to a union family. After fighting in World War II, he hired on at a cosmetics factory organized by the Gas Workers Union. He quickly emerged as a leader, fought for the rights of women workers, and soon became the president of his local. He would go on to aid in the merging of his union with the Oil Workers International that created OCAW. Within 10 years, he had become the International's Citizenship Legislative Director. Many have noted that Mazzocchi was one of the first labor leaders to build ties with the environmental movement. He linked the hazards in the workplace with hazards in the environment. He showed how workers and the public shared similar concerns about health and safety. He pioneered the Blue-Green Alliance that continues to advocate for green blue-collar jobs, build union reading clubs, and pushed his members toward social justice unionism. Mazzocchi was a coalition builder and worked with allies for clean water and air, single-payer health care, free education, and just trade policies. The United Steelworkers named their Health, Safety, and the Environment Center in his honor. He died in 2002 of pancreatic cancer. He was 76 years old.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
President Biden recently flew off to Taiwan to assure allies there that he will fight for them. And next, he's headed over to Saudi Arabia to, quote, repair ties with those oil monarchs. This flurry of foreign travel might be strategically important for international realpolitik. But hello, another strategically important piece of realpolitics is looming right here at home, the November congressional elections. Taiwan and Saudi Arabia don't get a vote, but Texas and South Carolina do. So how about spending a bit more time flying or even whistle-stopping to such places, where many hard-hit working-class families would like to see President Joe fight for and repair ties with them? In fairness, much of Biden's progressive agenda has been deliberately gummed up by such congressional blobs of do-nothingism as Mitch McConnell and Joe Manchin. But blaming them isn't winning any points for him. Nor does it help the families now struggling with baby formula shortages, $5 gasoline, a farm and factory depression, etc. Instead of blame or surrender, more of Harry Truman's feisty can-do spirit is called for. Get out of the Beltway bubble and go straight to the people with an urgent program of big actions that they want and need. To hell with placating McConnell and Manchin. You're the president, Joe, not them, and you're not powerless. For example, Representative Ro Khanna points out that you should use the government's emergency authority to do, quote, preemptive buying on the open market to stop runaway food and fuel prices. The authority to do this is already on the books, so no need to kiss McConnell's butt. Just take direct presidential action for ordinary Americans. This is Jim Hightower saying, this is the difference between giving speeches telling voters you're on their side and actually being there so they can see it for themselves. It's honest politics.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So, quote of the day, evidently, from the hearing. Former White House lawyer Eric Hirschman videotaped testimony. Quote, "Are you out of your effing mind? I only want to hear two words coming out of your mouth from now on, orderly transition." This is evidently what this Hirschman told Trump lawyer John Eastman on the day after January 6th. How come I'm just now hearing Eric Hirschman speak about this? I mean, again, all of these guys coming off like, oh, we were trying to tell the right things. Policemen died. people died. People are going to jail. I got to tell you, if I'm in MAGA world, I'm furious. I'm furious that I got fleeced out of $250 million. I'm furious that I bought those crappy hats. I'm furious. Anyway, here to share some thoughts. Maybe they're going to be furious, but here to share some thoughts on this, the hearings, and whatever else we can bang into. I've asked Joe Walsh to come talk with us. Joe is a former Illinois congressman, 2020 Republican presidential candidate, and host of the White Flag with Joe Walsh podcast, a fabulous podcast. I listen to it. I hope you will too. Joe, thanks for taking time for us.
Rick, I love you like only a brother can love a brother. It's good to be with you.
So MAGA world, look, if I'm part of MAGA world and I find that I've been lied to, I've been cheated, I've been fleeced, because I get the emails, I see what MAGA gets. What came out today, I don't know what else would I feel other than cheated and ripped off?
They're not pissed off, Rick. Since today's hearing, I've heard from hundreds of Trump supporters, and they're not pissed off, and they're not buying it, and it's unfair, it's a hoax, it's one-sided. Trump doesn't get to present his case. The American people don't care. I could go on and on. But the people who need to watch these hearings, they're not watching these hearings. That's the problem.
That is the problem. And I got to tell you, as I was some of the testimony, you go, okay, these are people just trying to cover their behind. But for me, it was the guy from the F channel, that's Sturwald, who was talking about
Chris Stirewalt.
Yeah, Stirewalt. What they went into deciding on how they were going to call Arizona, and there was some thought that went into it, and they made a decision that they thought was based on competition and business decision. And I'm going, that had to be a tough call for them, because they were in the bag from the beginning. As a channel, it seemed to me. So for him to go, there was no way that they were going to win. Our polling showed that. We had all this information, and this is what it was. That to me, that was kind of the piece that goes, they were lying to the people that even their audience.
Yeah, Rick, after these first two hearings, there aren't a lot of takeaways, but they're what we know. And it's clear after two hearings that everybody around Trump knew he was an idiot. They knew he was lying, and yet they all kept their mouths shut. Even the guy today, the campaign manager, Stepien, like positioning himself like he's some sort of normal guy. Look, he was part of the raising the $250 million. He didn't say anything in real time. Bill Barr, screw Bill Barr.
Yes. Thank you.
Screw Bill Barr.
The most disingenuous, dishonest person that I've ever seen. What the heck was that?
And again, Rick, this is what I, as a former Republican, put up with. Right now, if you're a Republican and you come out and you criticize Trump for January 6th, or you say that he shouldn't run for president, but then you say in the same breath that if he's the nominee in 24, you're going to vote for him, that's not courageous. You haven't done anything. You haven't taken a step. Bill Barr has said repeatedly that if Trump is the nominee in 24, he will vote for him. So screw that.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's... So obviously you watched the whole hearing today. Anything in there for you today? Anything in there you didn't know? Anything of surprise? Because look, I watched the first one. I listened to the second one, and it's for me it's confirmation bias. Most of this stuff I've talked about today. I said, look, they never took these claims into the rooms with the people with the robes where you put the hand on the book and swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. They never did that. So I always knew it was BS. But anything in there, these for you that's kind of like a shock? Oh my God, I didn't know.
No, and that's why, Rick, I don't think these hearings are going to do much. I mean, I look at it like this: if the country was not sufficiently pissed off about an actual insurrection, well, then why would hearings about the insurrection get them pissed off. We know the story. And so this committee now is telling us the story that anybody who's been paying attention has already known. Donald Trump began lying about the 2020 election in June of 2020. He did it with one single focus because he wanted to piss off and rile up his base in case he lost. I was on the radio at the time, Rick. I heard it from his base every single damn day before the election. They were getting more and more pissed off as Trump kept saying, either I win or it will be stolen from me. By election day, Rick, they were ready to go to war.
Yeah.
It didn't matter what Trump said the morning of January 6th. He had radicalized them by election day.
I would argue that it wasn't, 2020 that it started. I would argue it was 2015 when all that started, because you remember it was the same kind of rhetoric in 2015. If I lose in 2016, it was because it was stolen. So it was the same playbook, only in 2016 he didn't lose.
Yeah, I'll buy some of that, but this is a whole another level.
No.
I mean, think about it, Rick. Think about it. For the first time in American history, a sitting American president loses an election and refuses to concede, refuses to participate in the peaceful transfer of power. And then on top of all of that, he leads a coup to overturn the election. Quite literally. We've never seen anything like that.
So before I move on to the next thing I want to get to, do you see these hearings at all being productive going down the road? Okay.
No. Hey, whoa. I'll give you one, my friend. The only positive that could come out of these hearings is it wakes people up who ordinarily would not vote in November, independents, Democrats, progressives, who are pouting and whining or otherwise distracted, and they're not going to get off their ass in November and vote. Maybe these hearings will piss them off enough that they will go vote.
Maybe. I'll go with a maybe on that. I'm hoping, because, I looked at it, and again, the first hearing, I saw that Confederate flag going through the Capitol, and immediate anger, visceral anger from me on that. And yeah, it just.
Hey, brother, I'm with you. This thing should have been done on January 7th or January 10th.
Yep.
The country, in a unified fashion, should have picked up Donald Trump and thrown him out of the country and never let him back in. Right then and there, just based on what happened on January 6th. The country did not do that. And now here we are 17 months later, and that son of a bitch is more popular in the Republican Party than he was before the insurrection. No, we blew it. We dropped the ball, and we blew it as a nation.
Yeah, it's and then, so I know I said last thing on this, but this is one of those moments where do we know more now than we did then? And I don't think so. We got confirmation. They've confirmed what we already knew. But this is where, like you said, I said it the night of the 6th. Tomorrow we should be holding hearings. We should be ripping people in. Yeah.
These hearings are 15 or 16 months too late.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you.
That's the problem.
You listen to the Rick Smith Show here with Joe Walsh, former Illinois congressman, host of the White Flag with Joe Walsh podcast. I highly suggest getting that wherever you get your podcasts. We'll get links out on social media how you can check it out. Joe gets into the important issues of the day. Most recently, a long conversation with David Hogg on the gun issue. And I saw this past weekend you were actually in D.C. marching for the March for Our Lives. You being a from my cold dead hands gun guy.
Say it, Rick. Say it. You used to call me a crazy gun nut. Say it.
Oh, you were. You're a crazy gun nut.
I am. I still am.
Yeah,
I still am.
Yeah, no, there's you are. There's no, absolutely. And we will get into this because I'm wondering what your thoughts are on this most recent compromise.
You know what? It's okay. I'm good with it. I am a a huge gun rights advocate. I'm a gun owner. I'm a, as you said, from my cold dead hands, kind of a gun advocate. We need to do whatever we can to make sure people who shouldn't have guns don't have guns. That's where our focus needs to be. So expand background checks, red flag laws, all of that. This bill, this compromise doesn't do any of that, but it takes a couple interesting first steps, which I think are helpful.
I think most of it's toothless. I think it's window dressing, and when the next thing happens, it's going to give Republicans the ability to go, we tried and it didn't work. You didn't stop anything, and I think it's who knows if it even passes the House, because I don't think it's going to do enough.
Well, you and I may disagree. I don't think ultimately you can completely stop these shootings or these mass shootings. You do whatever you can to try to stop them.
No, what I've been saying is minimize the severity. You're not going to stop bad people from doing bad things, because like my buddy says, well, there are still knives. Yeah, I'd rather take on someone with a knife than someone with an AR-15 with a 100 round clip.
Or, Rick, minimize the frequency. And if you passed a bill like this Senate compromise where an 18, 19, or 20-year-old has to go through a waiting period and there is enhanced background check on his record, that's not nothing. That's something.
Yeah. No, I'm not against that. They keep throwing the analogy out to automobiles, and I keep going, yeah, I'm with you. Let's talk about how we register things. Let's talk about how we train people. Let's talk about how we insure things. Let's talk about responsibility. I'm not a gun grabber, but I am a responsibility and accountability kind of person. I think if you have a gun, it's a responsibility thing. When did the Republican Party stop being the responsibility party?
They're afraid to give anything. And look, Rick, I used to be more along that line of thinking back when I was in Congress, right? The NRA, Gun Owners of America, they're beating you over the head. Don't give an inch, don't give an inch, don't give an inch. Look, I don't want to limit access for law-abiding Americans to get guns. Not at all. And I do not want to ban any guns from responsible gun owners. But I do think as a responsible gun owner, man, we got to join the debate about doing whatever we can before a gun is bought. Again, Rick, to make sure a bad guy, a guy who shouldn't have a gun, doesn't get a gun.
But here's the thing, Joe. Yesterday they were a good law-abiding, good guy with a gun, good citizen with a gun. Today, not so much. You're never going to stop that. So on a certain level, don't you have to have the accountability and responsibility that comes with it? And this idea, I keep coming back to I saw this clip of Kyle Rittenhouse, and I bring him up only because he's the lightning rod who decided, hey, I'm going to go to this range and fire off a fully automatic weapon and then say, come get it, Joe. Do you think the founding fathers had that weapon in that kid's hands when they wrote the Second Amendment?
Well, Rick, do you think the founding fathers had a podcast or a radio show like this in mind when they wrote the First Amendment, or the internet in mind when they wrote? Come on, man.
Of course not.
Of course not. Of course not. So you and I can argue about the Second Amendment. Look, I value the Second Amendment every bit as I do the First. And like I know, that 99.9% of all gun owners in this country, no matter what kind of gun they have, they're responsible gun owners who would not do anything bad with that gun. I don't want to penalize them at all.
I don't either. I'm a gun owner myself. But the reality is, some people aren't so responsible. And I don't want the guy who gets ticked off at his girlfriend, his wife, his employer, whatever, or the neighbor to be able to go today and go get something and shoot the place up.
Then, Rick, and that's why, again, I'm very open to looking at red flag laws where the wife, the neighbor, the uncle, or law enforcement, a guy like that, can raise a red flag, and that guy's gun can be temporarily taken away or permanently taken away.
See, so you don't sound that crazy now.
Well, no, I want to make sure we do everything we can to keep guns out of these people's hands, but I don't want to ban any gun from anybody else, if that makes sense. That's not where our focus should be. ban AR-15s, man, that's a non-starter and it shouldn't happen anyways. But make sure an 18 or a 19-year-old kid who has no business having an AR, make sure he doesn't get one. That should be our focus.
So should we be able to have fully automatic weapons then?
No.
Why not?
And again, since 1934, by statute, and the court has reinforced. Look, Rick, even Scalia in the Heller decision said, there are limits. There are limits to what a firearm can be and where you can use it. We decided 90 years ago that was a limit. You cannot have a fully automatic gun. But Rick, damn near every long and short gun now sold is a semi-automatic. Everyone.
Now, what about look, I'm not a gun enthusiast, so you educate me if I'm wrong. But you look at these enhancements in these kits that can turn things fully automatic almost, these bump stocks, these other things that basically, look, I've listened to some of these, the audio from some of these shootings, and you go, how do you defend yourself? How do you go about trying to stop this with the kind of firepower that's out there? For me, it's about, look, I've been shot at before. Where I grew up as a kid, you knew somebody had a 6-shooter, they had a 38, you got 6 shots to duck from, and then you got a chance to either get away or rush somebody. With the noise that I've heard in these things, I don't know how you do that.
Yeah, but Rick, it sounds like then you're advocating to ban semi-automatic guns, and maybe you are, and that's a legit position. But understand, if you said we should ban semi-automatic guns, you would ban virtually every long and short gun sold in America today, period. And I don't think you can do that, and I don't think something like that would ever happen. So we shouldn't even go down that road.
Yeah, you're probably right. Maybe it's something that we're so far down the rabbit hole, you're never getting out of that.
No, and to be fair, look, I'm a big gun rights guy. We do have a lot of guns. We do have probably too many guns in this country. But that's not, and by the way, we have a gun culture. And by the way, we have a violent culture. That's not going to change. Well, the number of guns we have in this country is not going to change.
Scary time. So do you think it's going to pass?
I'm still skeptical. 50-50.
Yeah, me too. But Joe, I appreciate the time, the thoughts. We got to do this again real soon.
You're the best, Rick Smith. Love you, man.
Appreciate it. Our good friend Joe Walsh. Make sure you check out the White Flag podcast with Joe Walsh. We'll get links out on social media how you can check out the work that he does there. Always fun. Going to take a quick break. Right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk. Rick Smith here, host of The Rick Smith Show. You know, Father's Day is just around the corner. And if your dad is as hard to find a gift for as my wife and kids claim that I am, here's a little gift-giving wisdom from our friends at Omaha Steaks. Dads want steaks. It's true. We do. Every holiday in my house, it's the same thing. Dad, what do you want for this holiday? And, I always give the same thing. Give me a hug and spend a little time with me. I don't need ties or cologne or any of that stuff. And now, thanks to Omaha Steaks, they ask, Dad, what do you want? Steaks. Give me the Dads Want Steaks package. Just go to omahasteaks.com, type Rick Smith in the search bar, and order the Dads Want Steaks package. And for just $99, this limited time package includes 16 mouth-watering entrees that I love, and I guarantee he'll love too. The smoky, tender, bacon-wrapped filet mignons. The gourmet jumbo franks, their air-chilled, boneless chicken breast, and of course my favorite, the thick, delicious, boneless pork chops. And to finish it off, the sweet finish of it all, the delicious caramel apple tartlets. And as a special gift for my listeners, when you type Rick Smith in the search bar and order the Dads Want Steaks package, you'll also get 8 free Omaha Steaks burgers. These are awesome. You throw them on the grill, cook them to perfection. These burgers are full of bold, beefy flavor, made from 100% Omaha steaks, and now they're bigger than ever, a whopping 6 ounces. So this Father's Day, don't wait. Send Dad more than just a gift. Send him an experience he'll love and can share with you. In fact, don't just order one. Get 2 Dads Want Steaks packages. One for him and one he can share with you. Just go to omahasteaks.com and type Rick Smith in the search bar and get the Dads Want Steaks package. You won't regret it. I guarantee it.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
I'll tell you, I'm actually quite surprised that Joe was willing to look at other things on the gun violence front. Kind of surprised by it. I always viewed him as one of those, no, slippery slope, which means it's possible. It's possible that there will be some. Now, I got the emails today from all of the right-wing groups of, the rhinos and the traitors to the party, because there are 10 Republicans who, did say that they were on board with the compromise deal. And those would be Cornyn, Tillis, Blunt, Burr, Cassidy, Collins, Graham, Portman, Romney, and Pat Toomey. Portman, Toomey, they're going to be in Burr or Tillis are out. I don't know about it actually passing though. I'm still not 100% sure. And the other part of this is, look, I look at it and I go, there's some things that are interesting, that cracking down on some of these, defining what is a federal licensed dealer, cracking down on people who evade licensing requirements, some things, some language on straw purchasing. Okay, great. Spend some money on investing in children and family mental health services. Does some stuff in closing the boyfriend loophole. That's good. Money for mental health and supportive services. Good. Funding for school safety resources. Okay, because we got to go that route. There's a couple of things, but my concern is always that they make a big deal. Oh my God, we passed comprehensive, gun reform, and everybody goes, oh, we're going to stop gun violence. And then the next time something happens, the message from the NRA and the gun crowd is, see, you passed this huge comprehensive bill that you promised us was going to stop all gun violence. You're not going to stop all of it. Now, look, Joe makes an interesting point. I know a bunch of people who have ARs. You're not getting them all. But there's got to be a certain point at which you go, maybe you stop manufacturing them. Maybe you pass a law that say, sorry, no more. Maybe at some point you do something that you stop the increased supply. I don't know, but there has to be a conversation on, why are there more guns in this country than there are people? Like I said, I'm not a gun grabber. I fully believe people should be able to protect their homes. And if you're a shooting enthusiast, that's fine. But I don't know that I'm all that thrilled with, I don't know. So many of the people that I know that have guns, that have these fantasies of, and I seem to know a lot of them. The we're going to water the tree of liberty with the blood of tyrants and patriot crowd. That's a dangerous cocktail right there. And they all seem to be interested in voting for Benito Mastriano here in this state. And look, I tell the story often of the first couple of people I met when I moved to the area that I live in. And one of the guys was a Civil War enactor and regaled me with his fantasies of refighting the Civil War, and only this time making it right, which was really one of the creepiest experiences I've ever had in talking with somebody, because he had really thought it through. He had really internalized what that battle would look like, and put himself in that moment without actually thinking about, it's not the same time period. Very strange. Love to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Also, grab the podcast. Make sure you share with your friends. Quick break. Right back.
Check out ExxonMobil. The stock is now up more than 68% this year.
Great news for big oil. U.S. gas prices and profits to remain high all summer. Snow-covered Swiss Alps are losing their snow. Plus, Biden proposes a new marine monument while Interior moves to end single-use plastic in national parks.
All of those proposals and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
Let me get this straight. North Korea and South Korea and the United States are now launching missile after missile into the ocean. But I'm not allowed to use plastic straws? Huh? Is that right?
This is your Green News Report.
Yeah, I saved the turtle, the one that got shot by a ballistic missile.
Okay, Desi Doyen, the war profiteering continues, and they continue to call it inflation.
Yes, they do. Gas prices are about 50% higher than a year ago and will remain high until at least autumn. That's according to new projections by the Federal Energy Information Administration. And that is great news for big oil. ExxonMobil stock this week jumped to its highest level since 2014. But new data indicates that the high cost of gas appears to be beginning to undercut demand in the U.S. ahead of the summer driving season. In a hearing this week, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen debunked Senate Republicans' false attacks on President Biden's energy policies. She noted that oil companies are not increasing production despite the high prices and despite sitting on thousands of unused leases on the public's lands ready to drill.
They are just raising prices. Their profits are at an all-time high. This is not because the cost of oil has gone up.
Yellen said that because oil is a volatile commodity traded on global markets, accelerating the transition away from fossil fuels would do much more to protect American consumers.
Yes, it would.
Given the global nature of these markets, it's virtually impossible for us to insulate ourselves from shocks like the ones that are occurring in Russia that move global oil prices. And look, over the medium term, the critical thing is that we become more dependent on the wind and the sun.
Or you could just nationalize the oil companies. Just saying.
Meanwhile, big oil and gas companies are underreporting leaks of methane from their existing drilling operations. According to a new report by the House Science Committee, oil and gas drillers have internal data showing that their methane emissions in the Texas Permian Basin, quote, are likely significantly higher than official data reported to the Environmental Protection Agency.
Shocking.
The report calls for tougher surveillance measures to force drillers to do more to control potent climate-warming methane leaks that cause dangerous man-made climate change.
Yeah, but that would just cost the money cut into their record profits.
In Europe, a new study confirms that the European Alps are greening as the region warms due to man-made climate change. Satellite data show that the famous snow-covered Alps are gradually turning from white to green. The new research finds that 77% of the Alps above the tree line have experienced a greening over the last 40 years, with plants now growing at higher elevations than before, where previously they would not have survived. Here in the U.S., it's not much better. Federal scientists project in a new study that Colorado will lose half of its snow by 2080 and look more like Arizona. Parts of Colorado, Wyoming, and Utah are drying out due to climate-driven changes in stream flows, shifting those states into more arid conditions like the Southwest. Colorado won't turn into a desert, the researchers say, but it will be hotter, drier, and a lot less skiable in just a few decades.
I've got a solution.
What's that?
Get rid of the federal scientists.
But some good news. In a major step to reduce plastic pollution in our national parks, Interior Secretary Deb Haaland this week signed a new order directing the department to reduce the purchase, sale, and distribution of single-use plastic products and packaging on federal properties and to find alternatives that are biodegradable or compostable, with a goal of phasing out single-use plastics entirely by 2032. And finally, in honor of World Oceans Day on Wednesday, President Biden announced a number of ocean conservation efforts, including proposing a new undersea marine sanctuary in the Hudson Canyon, an underwater canyon about 100 miles from New York City that rivals the Grand Canyon in size. The proposed monument is part of the Biden administration's broad plan to safeguard 30% of U.S. lands and waters by 2030 and the wildlife that lives there, preserving critical habitat threatened by development and global warming.
We'll take whatever we can get at this point. For much more on all of these stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. Find, follow, and share us planet-wide on the Facebooks and the Twitters at Green News Report.
Are you tired of think tank approved corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
What an interesting day of hearings. And again, I think I agree with Joe Walsh. I don't know that it's going to move the needle, especially in MAGA world. But I got to tell you, if I'm in MAGA world, I am ticked off. Let's quick go to the phones. I got Julie listening from Minnesota on the line. Julie, what's on your mind?
Hi, thanks for taking my call. Say, I just heard about 2/3 of your conversation. I thought it was a very good conversation. The only problem I had with what Joe said was, he said, okay, we live in a gun culture and we have violence in our culture, and that's not going to change. But you know what? That's what the Republicans say. We live in a violent culture. We live in a gun culture, and it's like we shouldn't try. And my response is, why shouldn't we try? Because to me, that's kind of what Joe was implying with that statement. And I noticed he did say but a lot, but, I mean, I did enjoy the conversation, but I get tired of hearing how violent things are and guns, and yeah, that's true. But the implication is, therefore, we shouldn't try.
No, I'm with you.
That's the thing I have trouble
But
with.
the thing that I liked what Joe had to say is that he was willing to open up, and that's not the Joe Walsh that I remember, years ago, which was nothing. So there's movement. That's a good thing, I think. I think I lost Julie. All right. Thanks so much, Julie. I mean, that's the reality. There's some movement forward. But I appreciate the call. But today, the hearings, I got to get into this. That's why I have asked one of my favorite people on the air to come share a little time with us. That's why I've asked Chris Hahn to come talk with us. Chris is a syndicated radio host of the Aggressive Progressive podcast. You can check out his stuff at ChristopherHahn.com. Chris, thanks for taking time for us.
Anytime, Rick. How you doing?
I am good. I want to get into this the hearings today because I got to tell you, if I'm in MAGA world, I'm ticked. I got fleeced $250 million, $60,000 to someone to scream for 2.5 minutes.
I mean, you gave Kimberly Guilfoyle $60,000 to show up at a rally that I paid, took a bus to D.C., got a hotel room so that, filmmakers from around the world couldn't get good hotel rooms. I took one of those rooms at Trump hotels, and you gave her $60,000 to come down and speak. Isn't she Trump's daughter-in-law, pseudo kind of? Give me a break. Yeah, I'm pissed if I'm them, but of course they're not even hearing it, Rick.
Yeah, my first question was, how much did she have to kick back?
I'm sure there's some sort of deal there. I'm sure she's kind of floating, paying some rent in one of the Trump properties while she's living there with Trump Jr. I don't know what that deal is there. But I know Kimberly Guilfoyle. I used to work with her at Fox News. I knew her before she was even really on Fox News, when we were both working on the internet shows at Fox back in the really early days at Fox, and never thought she was crazy ever until, late in her career, when she was just later in her career, when she started doing the 5 and understood that if you're going to, feed that audience, you've got to toe the line. And that's what she did.
And I think that came out today. I mean, if you listen to the fired former political guy there from Fox, he said, look, we made a decision based on the polling. We made a decision based on educated numbers, and he got fired. I would argue for that and whatever else. But for me, the lying, the fleecing, they knew what they were doing all along. And you're right, Fox World isn't listening.
No, they're not listening. They don't want to hear it. But here's the thing. Here's the beauty of it, Rick. Elections are not going to be won by convincing the MAGA base that they're wrong. Elections are won by moving the needle at the margins. This is a 50-50 country. And I don't know that it's going to save the House of Representatives. I talked about this a lot this year. But the Senate is a much different arena. And I think convincing, 1 or 2% of right-leaning Republicans or center-right independents that they can't return this country to a Republican majority is going to do wonders in 2022. So, you don't have to convince everybody. 5,000 voters in Georgia, 20,000 voters in your home state of Pennsylvania, a couple of thousand voters in North Carolina. We change things in those regards if we can do that.
Are you surprised by the testimony that was given? I mean, you listen to each of the people, especially the videotape testimony, and how each of them tried to spin their testimony in such a way that they were the normal person. They were just trying to give good advice. They were saying, no, we've got to move on. No, there's no way we.
No, I mean, I titled my podcast that'll come out tomorrow that I taped today, Team Normal. There are people who are normal, and then there are people like Rudy Giuliani who, was he drunk? Was he not drunk? I don't want to judge. I've been around Rudy Giuliani a lot. I often see him with the scotch in his hand. So it's whether he was drunk, I don't know. But there were people pushing some pretty crazy things. And it's clear to me that Donald Trump knew he was wrong, knew he was lying, knew he lost. Bill Stepien is a professional campaign operative, has been for years. They had real data people on that campaign. They knew what the deal was. And then Trump just ignored them and replaced them. So, are people trying to run from this? That's good. It's a good sign for America that people are running for it. Bill Barr, there's been a lot of criticism of Bill Barr. I've been a big critic of Bill Barr. He testified truthfully and honestly to the committee. I wish when he resigned back in December of 2020 that he would have told the people why he was really resigning and not written that letter praising Trump. He should have been like, and remember, early in, after the election, right around Thanksgiving, before he announced he was resigning, Bill Barr made it very clear that he did not see any fraud in the election to the American people. So it's not like he didn't say that in 2020. He did say that in 2020. But the MAGA world didn't care, and he resigned. And I think his resignation could have been horrible for America, given the fact that Donald Trump could have, put somebody in there who was just some sycophant who would have told him what he wanted to hear and done what he wanted him to do.
So, because I give him no points for his testimony, so you're going to defending it.
I think that when you're asked, there's a difference between politics and talking to a reporter and testifying under oath. And he didn't lie. He showed up. He told the truth. MAGA world should hear that. And again, like I said, not everybody in MAGA, maybe not MAGA world, maybe that's the wrong word. Conservatives and Republicans who are not necessarily part of the MAGA world, but who think that you and I are being a little too dramatic about January 6th, they need to hear that. And they need to understand that returning Donald Trump and his sycophants and enablers to power in America is going to lead to more of this and less democracy. And if we don't have democracy, the stock market's bad today. Put a dictator in there and see how your stock portfolio is doing. It won't be doing anything. See what the value of the dollar is when the world decides that the euro is going to be the reserve currency or the Chinese yuan. I mean, you watch what happens to your portfolio and your value and inflation. This is nothing compared to what would happen if we had a dictatorship in this country.
And that's where I want to go to the next point, because you've got evidently Trump's talking about potentially launching his 2024 bid in Florida. You've got the latest polling coming out that's got Trump and DeSantis dead even, and whose name isn't continually coming up in any of these hearings, DeSantis. And there's part of me that goes, Trump gets put aside, over here, and you get somebody worse to lead that whole MAGA world down the road even further.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see if Trumpism could work without Trump, even with DeSantis. I know he's popular in Florida right now, but I also think he's governed a little bit too extremely in Florida, and I do think there's a risk for him in this election cycle, even with the world being what it is. But yeah, you don't hear a lot about DeSantis in these hearings because he wasn't involved with it. The Florida election was not something that was contested or by us or by anybody else. He didn't have to pull any strings for Trump. He's made the typical Trumpy remark about how, we need to be looking at these results very closely, or there could be foul play, but never anything specific or any action really.
Yeah. So anything in this hearing today that shocked you? Anything new for you in this, or was just more confirmation of what you already thought?
No, I think today was not as shocking as last week. I mean, I was shocked by the fact that the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys basically were doing a scouting operation while the rally was going on to find the weak spot in the Capitol defenses, frankly. And they found it in the Peace Circle, and they led the rest of the people who were at that rally to that point, while they, the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers, were intentionally physically trying to invade the space of those areas and use the rally as cover. That, to me, I didn't realize that they marched down long before Trump spoke, and then when the rally showed up, they basically covered up their attack. To me, that changes a lot of things. This is not like anything spontaneous at all. This was truly planned. And the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers were coordinating. And the question is, did they coordinate with anybody who was involved with that rally? I believe that we're going to find that the answer to that is yes. And if that's the case, I want to know how high up that goes. I've said this to you before. I don't think Donald Trump's going to jail. But the more I think about what's been going on here and the dots that have been connected for me and for the American people by this committee over the last couple of days, the more I think that an indictment is warranted for him. Now, I have a feeling, Rick, and this might sound conspiratorial, that before he left office, he wrote himself up a pardon, put it in an envelope, dated it, signed the seal of it, put it in his pocket. And that if he's ever indicted, he'll whip out that pardon that he gave himself. And then we have a whole new constitutional crisis to worry about. Can a president pardon himself? I happen to think he can under the Constitution, but maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, that it would be interesting to find out. But, one of the things that I saw today, an interesting statement out of Merrick Garland saying that he was watching, he's going to be watching all the hearings, and he can assure everyone that the prosecutors, the January 6th prosecutors, are going to be watching. That's kind of, hey, we're paying attention. We may do something, but I'm with you. I don't see us pursuing.
But
I would be
shocked.
what?
Roger Stone was being protected by the Proud Boys on January 6th. I haven't heard his name brought up yet.
And why is that?
I don't know. And this is just the kind of thing Roger Stone would be involved with. Steve Bannon, why haven't we heard about him? Steve Bannon went on his podcast on January 5th and said all hell's going to break loose tomorrow. And yeah, that's exactly what happened. So I'm interested to know, and those two are, a heartbeat away from the president, right? In a lot of ways. They are his right hand and left hand men. And I want to know what's up with them and where do they take this? And if they are indicted, those two, for seditious conspiracy, which I think they might be at some point, will they roll on Trump? I think they will. I mean, I know for all, Steve Bannon likes to look like he, fell asleep on a train 5 years ago with all of his clothes on. He is a multi-millionaire. He's got Seinfeld money. Okay, which really makes me sick because it's one of my favorite freaking shows. But he's got Seinfeld money, and I don't think he wants to spend a day in jail. And if he is indicted, he will flip. Don't let that "I was in the Navy" nonsense. He's been living a cushy Hollywood elitist life, and all this look he has, everything, it's just an act.
No, I'm right there with you. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show with Chris Hahn, syndicated radio host of the Aggressive Progressive podcast. Make sure you check that out. Also, check out his website, ChristopherHahn.com. We'll get links out on social media how you can take a look at that. So, I'm looking at this, and for me, the first day was the important one, because you look at the videotape of, as you were pointing out, how they planned this, how operationally everything came together. I had been saying for months leading up to that all of the Capitol kind of incursions that they had, the Second Amendment rally they had down in Richmond, Virginia, all of the ones in Michigan and Ohio and all that stuff, those were exercises. They were checking response of, what the public was going to do, the political fallout. They were checking responses. And this was part of that. But then with the backdrop, knowing that there was the Eastman memo, there were all these memos out there that they were plotting to stop the certification, because absolutely it was the Stop the Steal rally, Chris.
Yeah.
The intent, everybody went there with the intent of stopping Mike Pence. So it just seems like really convenient that happened.
I think they also underestimated how hard the Capitol Police would fight them. And the Capitol Police deserve a lot of credit. They deserve a lot of valor. And let me explain something to you. Back in Germany, when the civilization was starting to really fall apart and you were starting to see violence against Jews, there were police officers in Germany that tried to protect those Jewish neighbors, and they were hung right alongside with them. I'm the grandson of a Holocaust survivor. I've heard these stories. And those Capitol Police, and we heard the testimony last week from the woman who was fantastic. And then I thought it was brilliant the way they marked up what she was saying with the video of what was actually happening at the time. They didn't expect those two guards there to hold them as long as they did, and then more of them to hold them longer. If they had not done that, they would have killed members of Congress. I have no doubt in my mind of that. And they underestimated. They thought those cops were going to just roll and let them go walk in, and they didn't. So God bless those Capitol Police officers and the work they did that day. And shame on anyone who likes to say they support the police, who are cursing and chastising these people for doing their job that day. And there are a lot of people who have a thin blue line flag on their car, who are at the same time chastising the men and women of the Capitol Police who held the line long enough for the Vice President, Speaker of the House, the members of Congress, most of the members of Congress, the members of the Senate to evacuate the Capitol that day. I don't know if I went on a tangent there, Rick.
No. I mean, you're right. I got to be honest. I vacillate between that and they went as far as they were supposed to go.
Oh, I think when you see people moving in a column, moving in a stack formation into with zip ties and other things, I think their intent was to drag Nancy Pelosi out of that Capitol, to drag my former boss, my mentor, my friend, Chuck Schumer, out of that Capitol, other friends of ours out of the Capitol.
No, but what I'm saying
is throw
is,
them to the wolves and let what happens happens.
No, I'm with you. But where my mind goes is they got as far as they were supposed to, because they really, I believe the planners thought that everyone was going to evacuate, that everyone would flee the Capitol, that they would get them out of there, and that would be the end of the certification.
Yeah.
That they would then occupy the Capitol, and it would be over. And that didn't happen because, as you point out, the police did hold the line and did push back, and that part of the plan didn't happen.
Well, if you look at the timing that they showed last week, man, they were outside that Capitol as the full Senate and House were assembling in the House chamber. They were there. They were breaking through that, trying to break through that barricade as that was happening. It's breathtaking. I mean, I know we all knew this, right? But you see it again. And if you love this country, as I do, if you love, democracy, and you see what was going on there, and you see the lies being told by this president, and then you think about people like Kevin McCarthy, who knew better on January 6th, who's now, completely prostituted himself to Donald Trump, which I believe will not pay off for him in the end. And you see others like Elise Stefanik, who, was a moderate Republican until 2 years ago. You see what they're doing. They are as bad as anybody who watched other democracies fall around this world. And like Benjamin Franklin said after, creating the Constitution, it's a republic if you could keep it. And we barely kept it on January 6th. And it is in danger of falling again. There are people around this country running for office who do not believe in the election, do not believe in elections. The guy running for governor of your state said he'll appoint the Secretary of State who will decertify any machine he deems unfit. And where are those precincts going to be? I'll tell you where they're going to be. They're going to be in Center City, Philadelphia. They're going to be in Pittsburgh. They are not going to be in Lancaster County. They are not going to be in Bucks County where there are no people. They're going to be where the people are, where the Democratic votes are, where people of color are in this country. And that is not, that man is not a patriot. That man is not an American, in my opinion. He stands for the exact opposite of what this country does. And to run for governor in the great state of Pennsylvania, where our Constitution was drafted, where our Declaration of Independence was drafted, and to have that abomination sit as governor, God forbid. Okay, and you know what? I know it's unlikely. Pennsylvania has a trend of not electing people like that. But when the gas is $6 a gallon and people are struggling to make rent, they have other, liberals, have other things on their mind. Maybe don't come out to vote, and conservatives and people in the middle just want people in power to pay. So you could wind up with that guy as governor. God forbid Pennsylvania is close, or even if it's not close.
No,
God forbid he decertifies. He says, you know what? We're going to have one voting machine in Philadelphia. I think that's fair. We'll have one in each county. God forbid what happens in this country. Hopefully people will take to the streets.
No, and immediately we become worse than Texas or Florida or Alabama or wherever.
Yeah.
I've been saying we end up with Benito Mastriano as governor. Bad things are going to happen.
It's a great nickname for him. He looks like Mussolini.
He does, actually. Look, the reality is, I think you had the black woman, Kathy Barnett. Had she looked like an old white guy who looks like a thumb, I think she would have won the Senate side of the Republican Party.
Perhaps, I love John Fetterman's positions, but I think John Fetterman, when he gets out of the hospital, better put on a freaking tie and a jacket and act like he's running for the Senate and not training to go box, Apollo Creed. Okay. I mean, it's, I like what he stands for. I like his messaging. I like that he's a real Pennsylvanian, but he is running for the United States Senate. Maybe he doesn't have to put a tie on. I mean, I think ties are stupid.
He's got a tie. I've seen him with it on. He's got a jacket.
Just look like you're running for Senate, not training to go box. That's all I'm asking of you. I know you probably listen to this show. You're in the hospital. You got plenty of time to listen to things. All I'm asking, if you want my help, I'll come pick out some stuff for you, and we'll make you look like a senator. And I'll do it free of charge. Just buy me a cheesesteak.
John and I have been friends for years, and we've had this conversation. Because there was a question when he became lieutenant governor, would he don the tie? And he said that he would, and he will when he becomes a senator. He will look the part.
But you gotta look. I don't need to tell you, Rick. You got to dress for the job you want, not the job you have. Now I get it. He's got lieutenant governor's a pretty big job, right? But Senate people take very seriously. Nobody votes for lieutenant governor. They vote for senator, and it's something you're going to be on every channel. You're going to be in the mail. You got to show up. You got to look like you want that job.
Yep, I'm with you.
And it doesn't look tie. Put on a sport coat and a collared shirt. You're fine.
Yep, he'll do fine. I'm right there.
right.
Chris, I appreciate the time, man. As always, great stuff. Look forward to having you back again real soon.
Thank you, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Good stuff. Our good friend Chris Hahn. Make sure you check out the podcast, the Aggressive Progressive Podcast. Quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1914. That was the day that the Miners' Union Day Parade was scheduled in Butte, Montana. In spite of the festivities, trouble was brewing down in the copper mines. Many of the miners were growing increasingly aggravated with the Butte Miners Union Local 1, part of the Western Federation of Miners. Local 1 had been established in 1893, but some thought the union was too closely affiliated with the mine owners. Wages had been stagnant for more than 3 decades, despite the fact that the price of copper had more than doubled during that time. Mine owners stirred the pot even more by hiring Pinkerton detectives to infiltrate the union, instructed to promote violence. The day before the parade, 1,200 miners refused to show their union cards at the Speculator Mine. This meant that they were turned away from work. The next day, the miners' parade was met with jeers and taunts. Some of the protesters chased the union officials, who were riding in the parade on horseback. The angry crowd swelled and decided to attack the union headquarters. They ripped apart the union offices and tore out the union safe. They took the safe to a field and blew off the door with dynamite, finding $1,350 inside. Alderman Frank Curran tried to disperse the crowd, but they tossed him out of the second-story window of the union's office. Fortunately, he landed in a pile of carpeting that had been ripped out by the angry mob. He escaped with a broken arm and dislocated ankle. 10 days later, an unknown assailant blew up the Miners' Union Hall. Citing the violence they had encouraged as an excuse, the mining company declared it would no longer recognize the union.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
Rick Smith here, host of The Rick Smith Show. You know, Father's Day is just around the corner. And if your dad is as hard to find a gift for as my wife and kids claim that I am, here's a little gift-giving wisdom from our friends at Omaha Steaks. Dads want steaks. It's true. We do. Every holiday in my house, it's the same thing. Dad, what do you want for this holiday? And, I always give the same thing. Give me a hug and spend a little time with me. I don't need ties or cologne or any of that stuff. And now, thanks to Omaha Steaks, they ask, Dad, what do you want? Steaks. Give me the Dads Want Steaks package. Just go to omahasteaks.com, type Rick Smith in the search bar, and order the Dads Want Steaks package. And for just $99, this limited time package includes 16 mouth-watering entrees that I love, and I guarantee he'll love too. The smoky, tender, bacon-wrapped filet mignons, the gourmet jumbo franks, their air-chilled, boneless chicken breast, and of course my favorite, the thick, delicious, boneless pork chops. And to finish it off, the sweet finish of it all, the delicious caramel apple tartlets. And as a special gift for my listeners, when you type Rick Smith in the search bar and order the Dads Want Steaks package, you'll also get 8 free Omaha Steaks burgers. These are awesome. You throw them on the grill, cook them to perfection. These burgers are full of bold, beefy flavor, made from 100% Omaha steaks, and now they're bigger than ever, a whopping 6 ounces. So this Father's Day, don't wait. Send Dad more than just a gift. Send him an experience he'll love and can share with you. In fact, don't just order one. Get 2 Dads Want Steaks packages. One for him and one he can share with you. Just go to omahasteaks.com and type Rick Smith in the search bar and get the Dads Want Steaks package. You won't regret it. I guarantee it.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Check out our website, thericksmithshow.com. Questions, comments, something on your mind. You can email me, Rick, at thericksmithshow.com. So, Mike DeWine, governor of Ohio, signed a law today, actually. Going to arm those teachers. I love this. They lowered the requirement for teachers and then lowered the requirement for teachers to have guns. Because evidently a lot of people are having teacher shortages, so we're gonna be chopping down that a little bit, and then having guns in schools is gonna chop that down too. Evidently, you used to need 700 hours of training as a peace officer to be a gun carrier in the schools. Now they've knocked it down to 24. That's better than the original 2 that I had originally seen. I guess that's better. It's 24 hours, not 2. Is this a good idea? Bad idea? I'm thinking bad, but we'll see how this plays out. Anyway, here to share some thoughts on that and the rest of the news of the day, I've asked our good friend, former Ohio Congressman and political analyst Bob Ney to come share some thoughts. Bob, thanks for taking time for us.
Well, thank you, Rick.
So, what do you make of this? A good idea to arm the librarian, let her pack some heat to make sure those kids shut up in the library?
Well, what I think is interesting about this, if you look at the other law that basically was out there about the concealed and carry, and that was effective Monday. And in that law, Ohio's always been an open carry state, okay? But in that law, they did away with certain aspects of training, et cetera, and did away with the permit process. So if you're 21 years old, you can legally have a gun, carry it concealed without a permit, and they don't have to have the license with them anymore. Now, what I find, the reason I mentioned this law, because it ironically went through at the same time, I mention it because teachers are required to have some training and other people aren't. I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, kind of crafted a real weird two-strata system here. But the school districts across Ohio are able to authorize the teachers. So it still has to go through the school boards. And I think, Rick, you're going to see then a probably regional, cultural, political back and forth between what the teachers would want to do or not do, what the school boards want them to do or not do, and the parents in the communities, and depending where you're at in the state of Ohio.
Yeah, I saw a story, a rural community in Texas. They're big, giant, 6'6" former lineman, school principal. He's going to arm the teachers there, and he's like, look, we're a rural community. We're out in the middle of nowhere. Police response time is going to be real bad. It makes sense for us. We're a gun culture society. He almost made it sound like, hey, we're going to probably hang it up on the wall. And in that environment, I don't know. Center City, I'm not so sure.
Well, with this law, the high school districts aren't going to be required to allow them, but they can. And again, it's going to allow the local boards to decide, and you're probably going to have a lot of debate depending on which school district we're at in Ohio. And now, for example, there was a lot of support for airline pilots to carry guns. And then there were some people that said, well, they shouldn't have guns. But the way I think that can be looked at versus this bill is this. The airline pilots are, locked in, they're, secured. They used to be less secured, but secured in the cockpit, right?
Right.
And then they have the gun in there. They don't necessarily, walk down the aisle with the gun with the passenger sitting there. So that was an option which I think a lot of people found least offensive. With the teachers, carrying the gun, strapping the gun on them in the classroom, I don't even want to sort of go there what things could potentially happen. Somebody goes for the gun.
Yep.
I mean, there's just a lot of...
Well, when I lived in Ohio, I took the private police training. I had, when I was in college, I was a security guard, and you had to take the 120 hours of private police training. And what they told you is the majority of people at the time, now this is going back into the 80s, at the time, the majority of people on the job were killed with their own gun within 3 feet because they got to take it away from them.
Correct.
Do you want, all of these people walking around with sidearms in places where, students can have access, especially young kids who are, who are generally grabby anyway, and just accidental, kind of things. I don't know that it makes you any safer. In fact, I think, the positioning of a gun in a place like that you're just screaming for accidents. And when that first accident happens, I want to see I want to see what happens then.
Like I said, it's strapped on them, and I was comparing it to the pilots because that was controversial, but I felt the pilots would not be even half as controversial as the teachers because the pilots are locked in the cockpit. So I think it's a whole different scenario when you start to look at that. And then, of course, some schools have the school police officers, some don't. And then, it starts to bring up to mind if you're going to have a gun in the school, should the schools turn more of their attention towards, having a police officer in there versus having the teachers armed?
That's part of it. I mean, but here's the thing. Here's what we know. Here's what we've seen. This fantasy scenario that the NRA keeps throwing out at us, that, the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. We've seen this play out in a number of places, haven't we? I mean, most recently in Uvalde, Texas, where you had the police were just standing around. In fact, the Texas Department of Public Safety is asking the state's Office of the Attorney General to not allow the public release of the police body cam footage. And I would argue because, they didn't do anything. Now they're arguing, the shooters could determine weaknesses in police responses. You go, yeah, what response? They stood around for an hour. So, I'm looking at this stuff and going, even the guys who are well-trained, and they were well-trained. They went through the active shooter training. They went through all this stuff. They didn't respond in those moments. So if they're not doing it, what do you think, and the librarian's going to do, or the math teacher?
Right.
Yeah, what do you think of this?
This is hardly a solution to anything.
Yep. Should they have to release the body cam footage? Should we? Now, obviously, the shooting and the carnage you bleep out. But should we not see what those police officers were doing for that time period?
Of course it should be shown.
Yeah,
redacted with any obviously something that's horrific with the kids, but of course it should be shown because it's part of an investigation as to who responded, how they responded, when they responded, or if they didn't respond.
So
it's like Capitol Hill police officers. We at one point in time had automatic weapons for them, and I had a couple members that came up to me and said, "We don't like the way it looks." And I said, "Well, if somebody comes up with an automatic weapon and starts to spray across the Capitol, we would assume it would be better for them to respond than with a revolver, But we have to assume they're going to respond."
Yeah. Now imagine if they'd had automatic weapons on January 6th.
Mm-hmm. Well, they had weapons; they just didn't utilize them in that manner,
Yeah. And because the thought was, from what I understand, is they thought they were outgunned.
Well, this is one thing. I don't know if anybody talks about this or whatever, but I've said this once before, with the White House saying that, that the policeman murdered the lady that was coming through the door,
Ashley Babbitt,
just a few feet away from where the speaker and the members are. They didn't know she was armed or not. That was a justified shooting. And I thought, when you have the president and anyone from the White House saying that, let me throw this scenario out here, Rick, and I'll let you answer, and I think you know the answer and the question I'm going to ask. If about 20 people or more, 200 let's say, somehow breached the fence and were heading into the White House, what do you think would happen?
Oh, they'd have mowed him down.
You got it.
Yeah, there's no question about that.
That's what would have happened.
Yeah. No, that's so. On this, the Senate has a deal on the gun issue. I'm curious. Do you think anything's going to happen?
Well, I like translating congressional speak since I was out there for 11 years. You have the Senate Majority Leader, Democratic Leader Chuck Schumer, who says it's a good first step to ending the persistent inaction of the gun violence epidemic. Then you have Mitch McConnell, the Republican leader, Minority Leader, who has supported the talks, told Cornyn to go into the talks. He was more restrained, hopes there's significant headway on key issues like mental health, school safety, and respect for the Second Amendment. So I'm looking at both of these leaders who are being very, very, very cautious to not say, oh, this is really bad or this is really good. They're being very, very cautious to get a framework, because I do want to make this clear. The House did not pass a framework. The House passed legislation. As I read all these headlines in the corporate media today, Rick, gun deal, the Senate has a deal on the guns. No, it has a deal to have a framework on, obviously, if you look at the two bills, a very watered down framework. And I think Chuck Schumer said it best, it's an accord. So caution on the side of the two leaders, and I do believe they're probably going to get something, but probably everybody's going to hate the bill.
Yeah, that's what I've said. It's going to be toothless. It's going to do virtually nothing.
Okay.
And the first time there's another shooting, they're going to go, see, we did something, and it didn't prevent anything.
Right, and everybody's going to hate this piece of legislation for one reason or another.
Yeah, let's quick go to the phones and get John from Sun Valley on the line, who's got a thought. John, what's on your mind, brother?
Yeah, the quantities. How many teachers do they want to arm? And how many gun sales will that equate to? And how much profit will that be? Because money profit is much more important than people value in this society. So what do you say? What do you think?
That's a good question. Is there anything in that legislation, Bob, that says how many, or I think it's as many people as will want to sign up for it?
It would be technically, if every school board in Ohio said that that the teachers can do it, then the teachers would have the option whether they wanted to or not. So it would be a school board decision. I mean, the caller makes a great point. There's no question about it. How many people are going to do it? Who purchases the guns? You got more guns sold. But it's an unknown of how many school boards will do this. Again, I'm going to say regionally, it's probably a safe bet that if you look at eastern Ohio, you're going to have school boards besieged by parents to do this. And if you go into Columbus, Ohio, you may not. So it's really, it's going to be a big controversy out there, school board to school board, of people coming into the school board saying, we want this or we don't want it.
Yeah.
So it's an unknown. But he makes a good point, the caller does.
Well, it always reminds me of that David Bowie song saying, putting out a fire with gasoline, going to war or arming teachers to, it's all nonsense. It's all really ridiculous, actually. There's no common sense when you really get down to it.
And Rick, with what the caller just said too, and this is going to be far-fetched, but I'd like to throw it out here. If situations happened in, let's say, restaurants, and there was some horrible situation, do we then say, well, the employees of the restaurant will be, carrying guns, walking around different people? I mean, this thing can go a lot of different directions.
No, I have some friends, honestly, who would be all in favor of that, and I bet you the waitresses get better tips.
True.
You got anything else, John?
No, but I thank you guys for discussing this, and hopefully the listeners think about it more so.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks for the call, buddy.
Thank you. Efforts.
Good talking to you. Call again. No, I mean, that it is about the money, isn't it? And it seems to come down to a lot of that. But I think the waitresses, they're the people who should need it too.
right?
Grab my behind.
Don't leave me the tip I want. Yeah.
But back to this. Do you think anything gets passed? Because I'm a bit skeptical.
Well, I think that something will probably pass the Senate. Now the question is, what comes out of a conference committee?
Yeah. See, that's what I said
I
earlier.
do believe something will pass the Senate. I'm going to predict that.
Yeah, and I said
But
I
then
don't
it
know
goes
if it
to a
passes the
conference.
House.
And you've got an orange and apple bill process.
Yeah.
The House has a very spelled out bill that does certain things, and the Senate bill probably will come out not addressing age limit. I mean, they're going to say yes, mental health records can be looked at up to 21, but not addressing can you buy a gun or not at a certain age, 18 or 21, automatic weapons or not. So whatever comes out is not going to have the quote teeth that the House bill has.
No, that's where I'm at.
Then let me throw this out here, because I've been in this position 100 times. You, in a conference committee report, when a report comes back, you get one vote up, one vote down, no amendments. So then you're sitting there as a member of Congress, and a bill comes back that, let's say, is super watered down. Do you sit there and vote it down, or do you say, well, it was better than nothing?
And I think there are going to be a lot of people in the House who are going to go, no, it's not better than nothing.
I think that'll happen too. Yes.
That's where my mind was at the beginning, and I had Joe Walsh say, no, I think it's going to. We'll see. We will see. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show with Bob Ney, political analyst, former Ohio congressman. I got this question I got to ask you before we get to the hearings. We'll have a little time for that. But China again, pulling some stuff in the Taiwan Strait. Evidently telling us that isn't international waters anymore.
Right. China is, alarming us with a lot of private warnings, by the way, too. They are diplomatically sending messages to us. And, this can obviously raise tensions. The President Biden has come out very stern on our position on Taiwan, more so than any modern president, to be frank, about his position. In fact, the Republicans should have heralded it with, applause. I think they condemned it for being late or something. Yeah. But China also, I think, looks at Russia and the Ukraine as a fire drill. How did the world respond to that? So China is flexing its muscle on this. But the private warnings, I think, are a little bit problematic. Then again, it's China, and I keep thinking to myself, are they doing this? Are they escalating this, Rick? Are they building the tension so they can turn around privately and say, well, let's do something about this tariffs?
Yeah. No, that's an excellent point.
They're a manipulative government. They have manipulated us for years. We have let them manipulate us at the cost of loss of jobs for workers in this country. And you never know what piece of chess that the Chinese Communist government's playing.
No, excellent point. Last question. Obviously, the hearing today, there's not a lot. I don't think there's a lot there. I think Zoe Lofgren, said it best. The big lie was also a big ripoff.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts on what was presented today? Anything surprising? Anything shocking? Anything make you go, that's new?
Well, I mean, the fact that Rudy Giuliani was drunk didn't shock anybody. I think anybody at all. But it was when you look at it, he went in. From Jason Miller. Why would we not believe Jason Miller on this? He went in intoxicated to the president and was like, "Go get him and go tell him this and go tell him that." And it's just amazing that, somebody that's loaded is able to convince the President of the United States to go in a completely different direction than a president should go in. I mean, it's really amazing.
Well, it's because he told him what he wanted to hear.
And I think in there, the statements that Trump was detached from reality, I mean, these are coming from Barr, the guy that saved him from Mueller.
Yeah.
So Barr's not an enemy, and he's saying he was detached from reality. Then I love the two teams, Team Normal and Rudy's team. And, of course, the campaign manager, Bill Stipend, who couldn't be there today because of his wife having labor.
Somebody induced labor, yeah.
They had video of him testifying. But he characterized that, he was proud to be on Team Normal. I mean, this is how they were talking in the White House. There's Team Crazy. Here, let's have a meeting of Team Normal. So I think a picture emerges out of this is the big takeaway on that night at the White House and how decisions were made to go out and claim victory and say, they're trying to steal our victory away from us. And then millions of bucks went to a non-existent election defense fund. And then, of course, they presented nothing to the courts. So there's not a lot new, but I think what is shocking on this is to hear the voices of the people that are supporters of Trump. Jason Miller, Barr, Ivanka Trump, to hear their statemments.
Yeah. Did you look at Ivanka Trump? I mean, she looked like a vampire. She looked like somebody sucked the life out of her.
I think she's under stress.
Yeah, I would think
now
so.
Her father is, I'm not saying he's thrown her under the bus, but he got one tire running over her.
Well, because she dropped out.
He likes her, so it's just one tire.
Yeah, it's just one tire.
Yeah. Bill Barr's getting the whole bus.
So the question is would he still date her if she wasn't his daughter?
Oh, I'm not going there. I'm not. Nope, I'm not taking that bait.
No, he said that.
I know. I'm still not taking that bait.
I'm not making it up.
I know you aren't.
I guess she's too old now. That was rude. I'm sorry. I meant it.
Oh, my.
It just is what it is. So I guess last question on this.
Yes.
Does this matter? I mean, because if I'm MAGA world and I heard all this stuff and I endured the barrage of emails and all the right-wing blather that's been going on for the last 2 years, all of this stuff, and it's all just a big fleece, a big ripoff. I gotta be ready to burn the MAGA hat and the flags, but I don't think I'm going to see the anger.
No, it's not going to matter on changing the dice on those who are for Trump or those who are against Trump. I mean, I was asked my opinion at a gathering of family and friends, and somebody wanted to throw me on the barbecue pit because I thought the opening hearing was well done. I really do. I thought the way they presented it and the cases they're building. Having said that, no, I don't think it changes anything. I have always argued it just took too long. A year and a half later, it took too long. But here's where I think this might make a difference. I really do. And in the last 3 or 4 days is the first time I've started privately to hear Trump people say, well, maybe they're not going against him, but maybe he just ought to not run. I'm starting to hear that for the first time from inner circle people, which is interesting.
No, going to be interesting to see how this plays out as he's talking about, making his 2024 run and starting it off in Florida there. Going to be interesting days ahead. And for that, you will be here to share your expertise.
I will try.
Good stuff, Bob. As always, appreciate the time, man.
Thank you.
Our good friend, Bob Ney. Look, that was kind of rude of me, wasn't it? The whole, would he still date his daughter? Look, it was rude of him to say. But it is who he was, is. But seriously, I mean, if you're the MAGA folks, and you bought into this, you bought the big lie, hook, line, sinker, you believed, and now you're hearing from the best people. Now remember, all of these people who are now saying this stuff that we told him repeatedly, we were Team Normal. These were the best people. Remember that. These aren't, fancy pants liberals or latte drinking liberals. These are the best people. These are his people. In their own words. The best people. Letting the cat out of the bag. Now, for someone like me who's been paying attention to this from the beginning, I'm not surprised by any of this stuff. We've talked about this stuff for years. The fleecing of the right has been the goal all along. I thought that was the reason that he ran to begin with. Never thought he was going to win, but it was a way to get leverage with his TV contract to make more money and a way to cash in and sell more crummy vodka and bad steaks and maybe get more dupes to sign up for the university and the airline. And damned if people didn't vote for him. Other question I have is, did he do anything in the last 4 or 5 months of his presidency? And what kind of a mess did Biden inherit? Something to think about. Love to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you missed any of today's program or any of our programs, make sure you grab the podcast there at the website or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.